Everybody, Ed here with a Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Nvidia SHIELD TV, priced at $200 for the 16GB model that I'm about to unbox. You can also opt for the 500GB Pro model for $300. Although it isn't available currently, it should start shipping sometime in the first week of June. That aside, let's talk about exactly what the SHIELD is. As you can see, Android TV right at the top of the box, and that's because this console-looking device is something that I predicted roughly a year ago when I did a video on the SHIELD brand and its evolution and what Nvidia had done with the original SHIELD, which eventually was renamed the SHIELD Portable when the SHIELD tablet launched. And that was simple. The product gave Nvidia a chance to test out their Grid cloud gaming service, something that I think will really come to life here in this generation of console-type device. And then also, because of the incredibly powerful X1 chip under the hood, complemented by 3 gigs of RAM, dual-band Wi-Fi, and a bevy of ports, you can see what comes included in the box right there, as well as some specifications. You end up with really the best of both worlds and definitely a flagship Android TV device. So for those of you that already have Android TV on board your brand new 2015 set that debuted at CES, keep in mind none of those have the power of the X1. So inside the box you have the SHIELD controller. It does not come with the remote. That is a $50 optional accessory, as is the stand. I believe that retails for $30. You also have, as I mentioned, 16 gigs of storage, an HDMI cable is included, and that Tegra X1 processor. 256 core processor, that is, to really replicate the current architecture that's being used at the desktop level. 64-bit CPU, 3 gigs of RAM I already mentioned. Android TV, it's version 5.1 out of the box. And of course, Google Cast ready. HDMI 2.0, you heard correctly, that's 4K Ultra HD with 10-bit color at 60 Hz. This is incredibly significant. Those of you who have been waiting for a streaming device that's really designed for 4K, you're looking at it. In addition to that, a micro SD card slot for storage expansion that supports up to 2 terabytes, although that's wishful thinking in at least the current moment. You also, as I mentioned before, have dual band Wi-Fi 802.11ac, gigabit Ethernet port on the back of this for hardwire fanatics, 2 USB 3.0 ports, a micro USB 2.0 port for connecting other devices, and then last but not least, Dolby 7.1 and 5.1 surround pass-through. So a bevy of power at your disposal in what actually is heavier than I expected this box. I did purchase this from Amazon. I'll be including a link in the description. Wish that Nvidia had sent me a review unit, but they usually don't. That aside, still incredibly excited about this because this is really not only the ideal streaming device for those of you who really rely on streaming for all of your content, but also the beginning of, I think, a major trend or shift in the console world, as well as, and a great complement to the PC gaming world. So here, just again, a rundown: Android TV, the voice search, because you do get the SHIELD controller, basically very slight modification from the one that was launched with the SHIELD tablet. 4K movies, I already mentioned, and gaming. Not only can you use the Grid, which I think will eventually become a pay-for-play streaming service, but you also have the ability to stream from your NVIDIA-powered laptop or desktop computer. So really anywhere in your home now, you can, in theory, I wouldn't say stream games in 4K, I'm not certain about that, but at least 1080p, and you can do so without having to buy, another computer or worry about running wires or having a separate device for that matter. So here we go, getting this out of the package, and what's unique is that Nvidia really hasn't made a lot of physical products, and here we have now the fourth, I believe, if I'm correct, no, fifth maybe, that they've made, and I'm including the Tegra Note line as well. Not a large device, but definitely has some weight. Looks like we've got some nice dirt here, but that'll clean up very easily right out of the box. A little bit of plastic. There is a capacitive power button right there, which I believe then doubles over into the Nvidia logo in green while it's powered on. Very clean lines on this. Before I actually take you around the device, let's see what else is in the box. And we already kind of know since I went over it. You've got the SHIELD controller, basically identical to the original version that launched last year with the SHIELD tablet. Key difference, we now have buttons here, capacitive buttons, that are optimized for the current OS. So we're now in Lollipop land. That means we have a new home button, as well as some more gestures. A double tap here brings up voice search. So basically the OK Google function that you're used to on your phone or tablet. But everything else here in terms of buttons the same. You have a micro USB port here for charging, as well as your headphone microphone jack, the dual port jack right there. And that's pretty much it. The controller otherwise almost exactly the same. I'll do a comparison in another video if that's something that appeals to all of you. Putting that aside, we've got our cables. I mentioned the HDMI, as well as, and that is a full-size HDMI for those of you wondering. No fooling around here. After all, this is a streaming device at heart. And then the micro USB cable for those moments when you want to connect to any other device that you may have to stream content. Now, I also mentioned you have other ports. This is the wall wart, the power adapter that you will have to plug in to the device right there based on that port, which you'll see on the back of the console in a second. And really, I mentioned grid because I do think that is the future of gaming. Even Bill Gates, back when he was trying to decide on whether or not to include Blu-ray or HD DVD with the Xbox 360, a big part of that debate was his feeling that physical media was dying, and I agree. And I now believe with the mixed bag of success of the current generation of consoles, the same may be able to be said for hardware when it comes to console quality gaming. You know, unless you want to go bleeding edge and spend a fortune on an incredibly powerful PC with an incredibly powerful GPU, I think that there is a middle ground, and Nvidia knows that, and they think it's a market that has not been tapped. And this is it. And that's why I kind of predicted this would eventually rise at some point because of all of the capability that the Shield brand brought to the table, and really the emphasis on streaming, whether it was coming from your PC or from the grid. And the grid is what will really allow this to be a product for everyone, and should make Microsoft and Sony nervous all at the same time. So, with that packaging out of the way, let's just go around the console again. Really small, which I think is a great thing. You know you've got this. If you want the remote, you're going to have to pick that up separately. Even though that will act as a remote, it is still something else. It's an optional accessory, and that's because it's really for a customer that's using this for more than what Nvidia assumes out of the box, I would say. And it is a little bit of a money grab. As well. So there's the power plug that you saw before. HDMI 2.0 out, again capable of 4K at 60 hertz. Can't wait to test that on, I have both a UHD Sony top of the line television to play with, as well as my 4K LG Cinema display monitor. So I'm going to be testing it on both, although unfortunately, with the 4K Cinema display, I would have needed a DisplayPort, just realized. So forget that. I'll be sticking with the Sony. But I'll also test it on 1080p sources for those of you that are curious, even though this is geared specifically towards 4K. Your Ethernet port, your two USB 3.0 ports, that micro USB port that I mentioned before, and then last but not least, the up to 2 terabyte capacity capable micro SD card slot. A fan right here, or I should say ventilation, really, and that's pretty much it. Such a clean design. In my opinion, nothing to dislike. We've got a bit of plastic here, which I'm going to remove. You can see the high gloss finish, and really, it's just a very industrial design. It looks like, again, a reference piece of hardware, something that is really just made to do work, and that's what I see it as. Infrared port up here at the front, I believe, for the remote, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure. That's what it looks like. And that's it. I mean, a really clean, more ventilation here on the bottom, you may have noticed. And that's because, after all, there is a very powerful yet efficient chip under the hood. And when you combine that with this, which integrates voice controls as well, as I mentioned before, as well as all of the traditional function that comes with the Android operating system, Lollipop Now, at this point. But keep in mind, this is Android TV we're dealing with, which is another platform altogether. But it's high time that we see the reemergence of not only Android at the TV level, which we already have it in, like I said, all of the flagship 2015 models that premiered at CES, but in the form of a powerful streaming device that really beats everything else on the market. Yes, it is more expensive, but it's not that expensive. And if you go with this model, you can always expand storage through that micro SD card slot. Keep in mind the USB 3.0 ports are for storage expansion of a different sort, like connecting an external hard drive, not writing applications to or anything of that nature, whereas you can do that with the micro SD card slot. but that pretty much rounds things out. So this isn't just a 4K streaming dream device, even though it is, but it's also Google's really best foot forward in the television space, because lately, for the last few years now, Nvidia has become that Nexus type partner. Expect updates as frequently as they possibly could be, as if Google made this themselves. And then on top of that 4K gaming capability in the Android marketplace, which I'm not even going to get into because that's not what I'm interested in personally, even though there are 200 games optimized for the actual X1 chip in there. Again, it's all about the Grid gaming service. It's free now, a tremendous amount of titles for the fact that it's free. You're gaming over the cloud on NVIDIA's own server farm in partnership with Amazon. They're really doing the lifting here, but NVIDIA is the one who's designed and come up with all of the technique, so they're really just the host. And what this means is that eventually, somewhere down the road in the future, maybe the next generation of this, you'll be paying $10, $20 a month, something like Netflix or any other streaming service, to get access to a wide library of games and still play them at high quality settings without having to worry about whether or not your hardware is becoming outdated. So that's where I see this really going. But the fact that it's also the most powerful streaming device just makes it an even more valuable tool to those of you out there that are already in the market for something like that. Give your TV a true facelift. Or again, those 4K addicts who've been waiting for a streaming device strictly designed for true 4K at 60 hertz over HDMI 2.0. So really a versatile product, in my opinion. I wouldn't buy this for Android gaming, even though it can do that, and there are some great ported titles I'll get to in a update later review on this. But this is really, again, about the streaming and the future of what Grid represents. And if you want to be able to play anything from your high-end, as I mentioned before, NVIDIA-driven laptop or desktop, I think it's GTX 600 or higher, on another display in the house without having to drag the computer or run an incredibly long wire, or build another system or buy another system altogether. Hope that this helped all of you figure out exactly what this device is all about, because it's been getting, I think, too much negative press, when really I give NVIDIA a lot of credit for putting something out there that should have been done a long time ago. Great looking product. Hopefully the performance will follow through. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.